Have you ever felt the weight of your own life? Not just fatigue, but the heaviness of existence itself. It is a strange, cold paralysis that fetters the will, even when the heart burns with the desire to run. Everything inside you screams about the need for change. You know you must act, you see the plan, you feel the desperation. But your body does not obey. You are stuck, and you don't understand why. What if this paralysis is not your weakness, but a coded message? What if your soul has deliberately stopped you because the old path was leading to an abyss? To understand this, we need a map, and we will turn to the greatest cartographer of the soul, Carl Jung. He saw in this state not a dead end, but a secret crossroads, not a sentence, but a coded invitation to the most important journey in a person's life. Over the next hour, we will not just analyze this fear, we will decipher its hidden meaning. You will understand why you truly have no strength and why all attempts to get a grip are doomed to fail. You will learn what great task your soul is setting before you through this apathy. And most importantly, you will see the path that lies not through a desperate struggle with yourself, but through deep and healing understanding. If you are ready to hear what your soul is so desperately trying to tell you, our immersion begins right now. Let's talk about this state, about this inner swamp in which you find yourself. Let's do it quietly without judgment, simply acknowledging what is. The air here is thick and heavy. It smells of the musty leaves of unfulfilled hopes. Every step requires incredible effort but leads nowhere. Your foot gets stuck in the silty soil of yesterday's regrets, and you have to fight to take the next breath. Around you, silence. But it is not the silence of peace, but the deafening silence of the absence of life, a vacuum where music once played. It is the silence of a phone that doesn't ring, the silence of plans that no longer inspire, the silence of a heart that has forgotten how to beat faster. You look at yourself in the mirror, and the reflection seems like a stranger. You see the fatigue frozen on your face like a mask. You try to find in the eyes the person you once were or the person you were going to become. Where is the fire that once burned in them? Where is the lightness with which you dreamed? That naive confidence that the whole world was an open book? It seems that a whole abyss lies between that person and the you of today. And the most terrifying thing in this swamp is not the heaviness. It is the slow, quiet fading. The feeling that you are watching your own life from the sidelines, like a boring, drawn-out movie whose ending you already know, and you are just waiting for the credits to roll. And the first, and most important, thing you must know while in the very heart of this swamp, you are not alone. Right now, at this very second, millions of souls around the world are going through the same viscous, silent darkness. They are sitting in their cars in parking lots, staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, scrolling through social media feeds, feeling the same dull numbness. This is not a sign of your personal failure. It is not laziness, as your inner critic whispers to you. It is not a weakness of character or a defect of will. This is a symptom of our time. And what is much more important, it is a universal, almost mandatory stage of the human journey. The great myths and sacred texts of all cultures describe this descent into darkness, this loss of the way. Your state is not a sign of pathology, but evidence that your soul refuses to continue on a false path. It has declared a strike. So hear me now. Stop blaming yourself. Take this burden of shame off of yourself. You are not broken. You are not regressing. You are in a process. A deep, difficult, but vitally necessary process. And our task is to understand it, not to condemn it. Modern culture, all its gurus of productivity and positive thinking, teach us to run from this state, to fight it, to treat it with discipline, new goals, cold showers, and affirmations. They see your swamp as an enemy to be conquered, an anomaly to be corrected. But what if we ask a completely heretical, almost forbidden question? What if this swamp is not a prison to escape from, but sacred ground your soul had to sink into to gather strength? What if the energy has not disappeared, but simply changed direction? Imagine a mighty river that suddenly disappears from the surface of the earth. For someone standing on the bank, it is a catastrophe, a drought. But the river has not died. It has simply gone deep to carve out a new, invisible channel in the darkness, crushing stones and nourishing roots that no one suspects. Your energy is now doing the same thing. It has gone from the external to the internal. What if your soul deliberately brought you to this point of silence and paralysis? Because only here, far from the noise of others' expectations, can you finally hear its true voice? And to understand this paradox, to dare to believe that your river has indeed gone underground and not dried up, we must first do one necessary task. We cannot immediately dive into the depths. The surface of this swamp is bound by a thick, murky layer of ice. This is the ice of common misconceptions, the ice of your own shame and self-criticism. These are the labels of laziness, weakness, and failure that you have placed on yourself. This ice prevents you from looking inside. It reflects only your tired face in the gray sky, making you believe that there is nothing else there. Therefore, before we descend into the depths, we must first break this ice, methodically, piece by piece. We must clear the way for our gaze and understand what we are really dealing with. For before seeking the treasure at the bottom, one must be sure that the light of our consciousness will not be deceived by the distorted mirrors of false ideas. So let's start breaking this ice. Let's start with the most common and most poisonous myth, which your inner critic most likely repeats to you daily. Myth number 1, it's just laziness. This label seems so logical, but it is completely false. To call your state laziness is like calling a storm in the ocean a bad mood of the water. Laziness is an active unwillingness to exert effort, a choice of comfort over work. But is what you are experiencing anything like comfort? You are not resting. You are waging a continuous, exhausting war. A colossal amount of psychic energy is spent just to get out of bed, take a shower, answer a work email. Every mundane act becomes a feat. Laziness is when you have energy, but you don't want to spend it. Your state is when you spend all your energy on an invisible internal struggle, and there is nothing left for the outside world. Myth number 2, I lack willpower. This is the next level of self-flagellation. If I were just stronger, I would cope. But this misconception is based on a misunderstanding of how it works. Imagine willpower as a powerful engine in a car. It can move the car forward, but only under one condition: if the driver knows where to go. Your problem is not with the engine. Your problem is that the map has disappeared and the destination has been erased. Your soul no longer agrees with the route you have laid out for it, and you are trying to drive by willpower, but all your navigation systems are screaming about an error. Applying willpower here is like pressing the gas when the car is stuck in a mire. You only dig yourself deeper, burning fuel and wearing out the engine. Myth number 3, it's a chemical imbalance and I have nothing to do with it. This myth is more subtle and dangerous because it contains a grain of truth. Undoubtedly, our mental state has a neurochemical correlate, and seeking medical help can be a vital step. But to reduce the entire problem to chemistry is to describe the mechanism while ignoring the meaning. That is like explaining the crying of a person who has lost a loved one by the functioning of their tear glands. Yes, the glands are working, but why are they working? A chemical imbalance is a description of what is happening in your brain, but not an answer to the question of why your psyche has reached this state. Each of these labels, laziness, lack of will, chemistry, is like trying to treat a deep wound with a Band-Aid. They describe the surface, ignoring the tectonic shifts happening in the depths. They make you fight the wrong enemy. If all these labels, laziness, lack of will, chemistry, are just Band-Aids, then what is the true wound? To understand this, let's use a very precise and powerful metaphor. Imagine that your apathy is not a disease, but a fever of the soul. Remember how we treat a fever in the body. When your temperature rises, you intuitively understand that this is not the disease itself. It is a sign that your immune system, your inner healer, has awakened and is waging a desperate, fierce battle against some infection, a virus or a bacterium. A wise doctor will never say, "Our main goal is to bring down the temperature." He will say, "The temperature is our ally. It shows that the body is fighting. Our goal is to find and eliminate the cause of this fight." Moreover, a high temperature itself creates unbearable conditions for pathogens. A fever is a healing fire. To bring it down thoughtlessly is to prevent the body from healing itself. And now let's look at your state with the same wisdom and respect. Your apathy, your paralysis, your inexplicable fatigue. This is that fever. It is not the problem, it is the signal. It is a protective reaction of your psyche, which, like the immune system, has detected a foreign, poisonous element in your life. This infection can be different things. A job that has long betrayed your soul, a relationship that has become a beautiful but empty cage, a lifestyle that requires you to be someone you are not. Your psyche is slowing you down, depriving you of energy, because the path you were walking on with such speed leads to complete spiritual destruction. It deliberately raises the temperature to make this path unbearable, to force you to stop. Your apathy is not a sign that the system is broken. It is a deafening siren that says the system is working perfectly, protecting you from a much greater catastrophe. A life lived in vain. Trying to defeat apathy with willpower is like taking a fever reducer to bring down a 104-degree temperature and then going to run a marathon with pneumonia. It is madness. The true task is not to fight the fever, but to listen to it with gratitude and ask, what infection are you fighting? Where is the lie that you are trying to burn away? This may sound like a beautiful theory, but let's stop being just listeners and for a moment become researchers of our own experience, because your life has already provided you with all the necessary evidence. And now I will ask you to pause and honestly answer one very important question for yourself. Remember the last time you tried to pull yourself out of the swamp by force of will? Maybe it was on a Monday morning when you were making a grand plan for the week, or after watching another motivational video when you vowed to start running, eating right, looking for a new job. Remember that flash of determination. Now remember what happened next, not in a week, but in the following hours and days. What happened to the internal resistance? Did it decrease under the pressure of your will? Or on the contrary, did it become even more powerful, viscous, and suffocating? Didn't you feel that the swamp had become even deeper? That apathy, like a living creature that sensed a threat, clung to you with doubled force? I'm serious. Please pause this video for a few seconds and just be with this memory. If you felt that the resistance only grew stronger, that the paralysis intensified, then I congratulate you. You did not fail. You have, in your own experience, in your personal laboratory, encountered a fundamental law of the psyche. In that moment, your conscious will, I must change, and your unconscious, no, we are staying here, entered into a battle. And in this battle, the will is doomed to defeat because it is trying to fight a force that seeks to save you. Your soul, your immune system, perceived your escape plan as an attempt to take poison, and it activated all defense mechanisms to hold you in place. You have just confirmed the truth that Carl Jung formulated almost 100 years ago. What we resist persists. Your struggle with apathy is the very source that feeds it. This law that you have just felt for yourself, this paradox where effort creates even more resistance, was no secret to the greatest explorer of the soul's depths of the 20th century, Carl Gustav Jung. Unlike his contemporaries who saw in such states only a pathology to be eliminated as quickly as possible, Jung, like a fearless Dante, descended into these dark circles of the psyche with his patients. He was not afraid of their swamp because he recognized this territory. He saw that his patients, stuck in apathy and despair, were not actually at a dead end. They were at the very center of a most important and sacred alchemical process. The ancient alchemists, whom Jung studied deeply, believed that to transform a base metal, lead, into pure gold, it must first be subjected to a process of decomposition. It had to be heated, dissolved, brought to a state of prima materia, the primary black, undifferentiated mass. They believed that from this chaos, from this blackness, something new and precious could be born. This first, most agonizing and frightening stage they called nigredo, the blackening. Jung saw in this a perfect metaphor for the deepest psychological process. He understood that the soul, in order to heal and move to a new level of being, must first descend into its own night. It must go through the stage of nigredo, where the old personality, old values, old beliefs that have exhausted themselves begin to disintegrate and dissolve. Your swamp is this nigredo. Your apathy is the fire that dissolves the old leaden facade. Your paralysis is a sign that the process is in full swing. You are not at a dead end. You are in the alchemical retort of your own soul. And what you are feeling is not the end of the road. It is its darkest, but also its most important, most necessary beginning. So what is nigredo from a psychological point of view? To understand this, we must for a time become alchemists. Imagine an ancient laboratory, lit only by the flickering of a fire. On the table lies a dusty treatise describing the great work, the opus magnum, the transformation of common lead into pure, shining gold. The ancient masters knew, you cannot simply polish lead to make it gold. You cannot just change its external form. You must change its essence. And the first most important stage of this process, they called solutio dissolution. They placed the lead in a retort and heated it, subjected it to acids until the solid, structured metal lost its form, turning into a black, uniform, viscous mass. This was the prima materia, the primary matter. They believed that only from this state of chaos, from this fertile blackness, could something new and precious be born. Jung's brilliant breakthrough was that he saw in this not a chemical recipe, but a perfect map of the human soul. He understood that the alchemical retort is our psyche, and the lead is our personality. More precisely, that part of it he called the persona. This is our social mask, the set of roles and beliefs we have built to survive in this world. A good worker, a responsible parent, a successful person, a strong individual. This is the statue that we have carefully sculpted from the stone of others' expectations and our own ideas of what we should be. And then, at a certain point in life, the soul realizes that this lead statue has become too tight. It is beautiful, it is strong, but it is dead. It does not correspond to the inner gold, the true self that longs to manifest. And then the psyche initiates the process of nigredo. It begins to dissolve this statue. Your beliefs, which seemed unshakable, begin to crumble. Your goals, which you pursued for so long, lose all meaning. Your career, your social role, all of this begins to feel alien and false. And here we come to the main question. Where has all your energy gone? It has not disappeared. It is all, down to the last drop, going into this titanic internal process of disintegration. You feel exhausted not because you are doing nothing, but because your soul, without your knowledge, is engaged in the most complex and energy-intensive work, the complete dismantling of your old universe. It is similar to what happens with a caterpillar in a cocoon. From the outside, the cocoon is motionless and seems lifeless. But inside, a total, turbulent transformation is underway. The old structure is completely dissolving so that a new creature can emerge from this soup. Your fatigue is the fatigue of this caterpillar. Your apathy is the blackness of the prima materia. Your paralysis is a sacred sign. Do not disturb, a great work is in progress. This alchemical drama may seem abstract, but it plays out in the lives of ordinary people every day, far from ancient laboratories. Let me tell you the story of Sarah. Imagine Sarah, a brilliant lawyer. Her entire life was a work of art carved from the granite of the word should. She should have been the best in law school. She should have gotten a position at a prestigious firm. She should have married the right man, lived in the right house, driven the right car. And she achieved all of it. Her persona was flawless, polished, armored, inspiring admiration. To the outside world, Sarah was the embodiment of success. Her life was a lead statue, perfected. But by the time she was 40, something inside that statue began to die. At first, it was a quiet whisper on Sunday evenings, a dull, inexplicable anguish before the start of a new work week. Then the whisper grew louder. She would win major cases in court but feel nothing but emptiness. She would sit at dinner in her perfect house and feel like a ghost. Apathy began, a fatigue that no vacation could cure. This was her soul beginning its quiet rebellion. This was the beginning of Negredo, and then the disintegration began. Slow at first, then like an avalanche. Minor mistakes at work that were previously unthinkable. A growing distance between her and her husband, who loved the lawyer but did not know the woman inside. In 1 year, her world collapsed. She was fired for a serious error. Her husband, tired of her depression, filed for divorce. Her friends, accustomed to her strength, did not know how to talk to her weakness and gradually disappeared. Her soul, tired of the gilded cage her ego had so diligently built, decided to burn that cage to the ground, leaving Sarah alone amidst the ashes of her former life. She found herself in her swamp, in her prima materia. She was no longer a lawyer, no longer a wife. She was a nobody. For months, she did nothing. She just existed. And then one day, on one of the endless empty days, while sorting through old boxes, she came across her childhood drawing set. With no purpose, with no thought of the result, just to keep her hands busy, she took a charcoal pencil and drew a line on a sheet of paper. Then another. She drew as she had in childhood, unskillfully, without any technique, just following an inner impulse. This was not a willful decision to start a new life. It was an act of complete desperation and surrender. But this meaningless act became her lifeline. She began to draw every day, at first ugly, dark figures reflecting her pain. Then colors began to appear in her drawings. She was not trying to become an artist. She was simply allowing her soul to speak in the only language it had left. A few years later, Sarah began to exhibit her work in a local gallery. She did not become world famous, did not earn millions, but for the first time in her life, she felt alive. Sarah's soul dissolved the brilliant but dead lawyer to allow the birth of the living, though not as socially successful artist she was always meant to become. She went through her Negredo, and at the bottom of her blackness, she found not death, but her true gold. And if Sarah's story resonated with you, know this, it is not by chance, because her soul speaks the same universal, silent language as yours. Sarah's story is not just a fairy tale, it is a mirror. It is a map of your own process, unfolding right now. The life that you hate but cling to so desperately, that is her lawyer personality. It is your well-built, socially approved persona. It could be the role of a reliable professional who died of boredom long ago, but is afraid of losing stability. It could be the mask of the perfect partner in a relationship that has become a predictable prison. It is the image of a strong person who never asks for help and is slowly crumbling under the weight of their own armor. It is the lead statue you have polished for so long that you have forgotten who is inside. And this statue has become your mausoleum. Your apathy, your paralysis. This is the very alchemical force that is, right now, at this very minute, destroying this facade. It is not your enemy. It is your only ally strong enough to set you free. Your ego, your conscious mind, is screaming in terror because it has identified with this statue. It thinks it is dying, but only the prison is dying. And somewhere in the depths of your swamp, like Sarah's, your inner artist is waiting for its moment. And by artist, I don't just mean someone who paints or writes music. Artist is a metaphor for the part of you that lives by the laws not of should, but of want. The part that remembers what brought you causeless joy in childhood. The part that you betrayed for the sake of security, approval, or money. It could be the inner traveler, the gardener, the philosopher, the teacher, the healer. That spark of authenticity that you once hid so deep, you almost forgot it existed. And now I want to ask you a few questions, and I ask you not to answer them with your mind. Just let them fall into the silence of your heart. What personality, what role is your soul trying to dissolve right now? Name it to yourself. And what inner artist did you leave to die in a dungeon while building this role? Who is it? Your apathy is not an absence of feelings. It is your soul's grief for the life you never dared to live. It is the artist's longing for its right to exist. And this pain, this fever of the soul, will not subside until you turn to face it. And so that this insight, this painful but liberating prick of recognition, does not remain just a fleeting thought, let's take one small but incredibly important step. Let's turn passive listening into an active ritual, a ritual of return and acknowledgement. And here is my second and perhaps most important question to you this whole time. I want you to take a short journey back in time to a point in your life where the swamp did not yet exist. What part of yourself did you leave behind while building your current life? Transport yourself back to when you were 16. Remember your room, the music you listened to, the posters on the walls? What brought you pure, unadulterated joy before you learned the words must, should, stable, and prestigious? What did you dream of in silence when you thought no one could hear you? What made your heart beat faster, not from fear, but from anticipation? Maybe it was the desire to write poems that no one would read, or to take apart old engines, or to study the starry sky, or just to travel without a map. Do not be afraid of the answer that is now surfacing from the depths. Do not push it away, even if it seems naive, silly, or unattainable. Do not judge yourself for betraying that dream. Now is not the time for judgment. Now is the time for a meeting. Just allow this image, this feeling, this forgotten I to return for a moment. Look it in the eyes. And now I will ask you to do something very simple. Write in the comments below this video a single word that describes this forgotten, betrayed part of you. No long stories needed. No explanations or excuses. Just one word. Musician, traveler, poet, astronomer, inventor, healer, sailor, dreamer. Why is this necessary? Because the act of naming is an act of embodiment. By writing this word, you are bringing it out of the prison of the unconscious and into the light. But more importantly, you are bringing it into a community. Let's create here, in this digital space, not just a comment section, but a gallery of these forgotten parts. A sacred space where they can be seen and acknowledged. As you scroll through these comments, you will see hundreds, maybe thousands of other artists, philosophers, and explorers. You will understand how universal this loss is. And perhaps in this stream of lonely words under a video, you will for the first time in a long time feel that you are part of your true tribe, the tribe of those whose souls also remember and long. This is your chance to say to this forgotten part of yourself, I see you, I remember you, and I will no longer pretend that you don't exist. Do it now. When we look at these words in the comments, poet, astronomer, dreamer, at this gallery of forgotten parts of ourselves, we begin to understand something fundamental. We understand that the crisis we are experiencing is not a random breakdown or a curse. It is an invitation to return home, to ourselves. So your swamp is not the enemy. It is your strictest, but also your wisest teacher. And its main first lesson, which it teaches through apathy and paralysis, is the lesson of surrender. Let's be very precise. This is not about defeat. In our culture, to give up is synonymous with weakness. But we are talking about something else. Defeat is when you have exhausted all your strength in a fight and admitted you have been beaten. Surrender is an act of the highest wisdom when you realize you are fighting the wrong force and voluntarily stop this meaningless war. It's as if a swimmer caught in a strong ocean, current stopped, desperately paddling toward the shore, burning their last strength, and instead relaxed and allowed the current to carry them to a safe place further down the coast. Your ego, your conscious mind, wants to win the battle. It wants to defeat apathy, force the body to move, regain control. Your soul wants you to stop the war. It wants you to surrender to its will, to its deep, instinctive knowledge of where you truly need to go. And as soon as you stop this war, as soon as you lay down the weapons of will, the real work begins. The ancient alchemists, who knew everything about Negredo, left us a guiding star for this stage. One simple but profound phrase. They said, in stercor invenitur, in filth the treasure is found. Psychologically, this means that it is precisely in those states that we despise and try to escape from, in our apathy, in our fear, in our longing, in our envy, in our weakness, that what we are looking for is hidden. The energy is buried there. The inner artist is waiting for its moment there. And this completely changes your task. Your task is not to escape from the filth. Your task is to find your gold in it. To stop being a soldier storming an enemy fortress and to become an archaeologist who, with reverence and patience, excavates a lost city within themselves. And what does this surrender look like in practice? How do you move from a desperate struggle to wise listening? It begins with a radical shift in the direction of your attention, from the external to the internal. The path is not through external actions, but through internal attention. Stop making escape plans. Stop Googling how to beat procrastination. Put away the book about the 7 steps to success. Don't force yourself to go to the gym if your entire being resists it. All of this is an attempt to force the old mechanism to work by willpower. But it is not broken. It has fulfilled its purpose. Instead, sit on the shore of your swamp, virtually, of course, in the silence of your room, and start listening. What are your dreams saying? Don't try to interpret them with dream dictionaries. Just observe. What images and plots are repeated in this nightly theater of your soul? What feelings remain with you after waking anxiety, sadness, or perhaps a strange relief? Dreams are direct, uncoded letters from your unconscious. Start reading them. What images and fantasies come to you in moments of silence, when you are driving in the car or washing dishes? Maybe it's an image of a road leading into a forest, or an abandoned house from your childhood. The psyche does not speak in words, but in pictures. Start treating them like letters addressed personally to you. And most importantly, what feelings have you been suppressing for so long? The anger that you considered improper, the deep sadness that you masked with cynicism, the envy of someone else's freedom that you condemned in yourself as pettiness. These are not bad emotions. They are messengers. Anger points to violated boundaries, sadness to what has been lost, envy to what your soul craves. These are the voices of your shadow, those parts of you that you once rejected to build your perfect persona. This is your inner loser, your child, your rebel. All those aspects of your personality that did not fit into the image of a successful and strong person. You exiled them to the dungeons of your soul, placing your inner critic as a guard, and you looked for energy for change in the outside world in coffee, in motivation, in others' approval, not realizing that all this time it was captive. It was locked away with those parts of you that you yourself had condemned. Your fatigue is the energy you spend maintaining this internal prison. The path to freedom lies not in building something new on the outside, but in liberating what is already inside. It requires not willpower, but the courage to listen. This listening may seem difficult and abstract. Where to begin? How to hear what has no voice, but manifests only through heaviness and paralysis? Let me offer you one simple, yet incredibly powerful first step. It is a practice you can do this very evening, and it requires nothing but a pen, paper, and a drop of courage. Here is the simple but powerful exercise. Take a journal. Not a laptop, not a phone. Specifically, paper and a pen. The physical act of writing by hand engages completely different parts of our brain, slows us down, and connects us with the body. Find 15 minutes when no one will disturb you. This is your time. This is sacred time. At the top of a clean page, write the name of the one you will be speaking to. Give your symptom a name, as if it were a living being, a separate personality living inside you. For example, my apathy, my fear of change, my inner paralysis. And then begin a dialogue. Write a simple, respectful address, as if you were writing to a wise but misunderstood elder. Write something like, "Dear apathy, I have fought with you for so long. I hated you and tried to get rid of you. Today, I will not fight. I want to hear you. What are you trying to tell me? What are you protecting me from? What is your true message for me?" And then, the most important part, be silent. Turn off your inner critic, your analyst, your skeptic, and write the answer that comes. Don't think. Don't edit. Don't analyze whether it is right or stupid. Your task is to simply write down the very first impulse that arises in your head. For a moment, become this apathy. Give it a voice. Let it speak through your hand. What happens in this moment? You are starting a revolution in your inner world. For the first time in many years, you are treating your symptom not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as an important part of yourself that has its own truth. You are changing your position from a warrior to a listener. This is the act of integrating the shadow. You will be amazed to discover that behind the mask of dreary apathy hides a wise, tired being that has a very important message for you. Maybe it will say, I am protecting you from a job that is killing you because you don't dare to leave it yourself. Or, I am depriving you of strength because you spend it on people who do not value you. Or, I am keeping you here in the silence because you have never mourned that dream of yours that you betrayed 20 years ago. This is not just an exercise. It is an act of sacred listening. It is the first step toward turning the prison of your symptom into the throne room of your wisest advisor. This exercise is just the beginning of a dialogue, but the very fact that you are willing to start it changes everything. It proves that you are not standing in the middle of a dead end, but on the threshold of a great transformation. It is a sign that the alchemical process of Negrito is ready to move into its next creative phase. So hear and accept this truth with your entire being. What you are experiencing is not a crisis of weakness. It is a crisis of growth. Imagine a snake that has outgrown its skin. The old skin has become unbearably tight. It suffocates, it obstructs vision, it restricts movement. And the process of shedding it is agonizing. It requires rubbing against rocks and the sharp branches of reality. From the outside, it looks like agony. But this pain is not evidence of the snake's illness or weakness. On the contrary, it is evidence of the life force within it, which demands more space, demands renewal, demands further growth. Your old life, your persona, has become this tight skin. And your apathy, your paralysis, this is the feeling of suffocation in an old form that no longer matches your inner scale. You feel like you are dying, and in a way you are right. But it is not your essence that is dying. Your persona is dying. The false contract you made with the world in exchange for security and approval is dying. The version of you that settled for less than your soul deserves is dying. You are not dying. You are preparing for a new birth, and this is not just happening to you. Do not think for a second that you are a passive victim of circumstances or bad biochemistry. It is your soul, your deep self, that is doing this for you. It is a wise surgeon performing a complex, painful, but vitally necessary operation to separate the true from the false. Your ego is in a panic because it is losing control, but your soul knows exactly what it is doing. Understand, the universe does not waste such a profound crisis on someone who does not have enough depth to endure it and be reborn. Your pain is the measure of your potential. The depth of your despair is merely a mirror reflection of the height to which your soul is calling you to rise. You are not broken. You are expanding. So we have traveled a long way through the darkness of your state, from deconstructing false myths to meeting forgotten parts of yourself. And if you were to take away only one thought, one crystal of meaning from our entire journey today, let it be this. Remember, your paralysis is not a system error. It is its most important, healthiest, and most merciful function. It is not a breakdown. It is a sacred pause that your soul has taken, hitting the emergency brake because the train of your life was hurtling at full speed toward an abyss of indifference and lies. The purpose of this stop, this Negrito, is not punishment or torment. Its purpose is dismantling. Your soul, like a wise alchemist, has initiated the process of solutio to patiently, layer by layer, dissolve the life that has become a lie. To dissolve the leaden persona built from others' expectations, so that from the wreckage, from this prima materia of your swamp, it can assemble the life that will be true, the one that will correspond to the gold of your true self. And this brings us to the final, most important paradox. You think you are afraid of change. You think you are afraid of failure, uncertainty, and the pain associated with leaving your comfort zone. But this is only a superficial fear. Your fear of change is actually a fear of your own greatness that awaits on the other side of the crisis. You are not afraid of the darkness of the swamp. You are afraid of the dazzling light of the gold that is hidden within it. You are afraid of the power, the responsibility, the authenticity that will come when you become who you are destined to be. Living in unhappiness is familiar. Being small and limited is safe. But to accept your greatness means to forever give up all excuses. Your soul has stopped you not so that you would suffer, but so that you would finally stop running from the incredible power you are afraid to possess. Your paralysis is the last line of defense against your own light. And when you accept this truth, that your crisis is an invitation to greatness, it's not just your present that changes. Your future changes. The gaze directed forward ceases to be a gaze into a foggy, frightening abyss and becomes a gaze toward a distant but visible shore. Let me be perfectly honest. The path through Negredo does not promise to be quick or easy. The alchemical process does not tolerate haste. There will be days when the swamp will seem endless. There will be moments when the old voices of fear and doubt will scream especially loudly. Surrender is not a one-time act, but a daily practice. But this path promises to be real. Every step taken, not from should, but from an inner impulse, will fill you with energy, not take it away. Every feeling you allow to be, without judging it, will return to you a piece of your lost wholeness. And know this, on the other side of this swamp, what awaits you is not your old life, repaired and improved. Not the same lead statue, just polished to a shine. A new land awaits you, a new life based on a completely different foundation. Not on who you should be in the eyes of your parents, society, or your own ego, but on who you really are in the depths of your soul. On the other side, what awaits you is not a loud triumph, but a quiet recognition. Not the applause of a crowd, but an unbreakable, calm handshake with your own soul. And that is the only achievement that matters. This path requires courage. And the fact that you have watched this video to the end, that you did not turn it off when the conversation became difficult and personal, says a great deal about your courage. And for that, I want to sincerely thank you. Thank you for walking this path with us. Thank you for your trust, for your time, for your openness. Your willingness to look into your own darkness without looking away is an act of great courage in a world obsessed with superficial light and quick fixes. It proves that you are a seeker. And the most important thing I want to say to you at the end of this hour is, know that you are no longer alone on your journey. The moment you decided to click on this video and walk this path, you silently join an invisible but very real community. A community of those who seek not easy answers, but deep truth. Those who intuitively feel that the most important treasures lie not on sun-drenched mountain peaks, but at the bottom of the darkest canyons of the soul. You are part of a tribe. Welcome to the tribe of those who are not afraid of the dark, because they know that it is in the darkness, in this fertile Negredo, that real stars are born. Our journey today ends here, but the exploration itself is endless. This is just one map, one trail on the vast continent of your soul. If this deep dive has resonated in your heart, if you feel that this language of truth is your language, I invite you to continue this exploration together. Subscribe to this channel so that we can continue to study the maps left to us by the great masters of psychology and navigate by them through the complex landscape of our inner lives. Click the bell so you don't miss our next conversation. Think of it not as a notification, but as a quiet signal, inviting you to stop again, to put aside the hustle of the world, and to dedicate time to what truly matters. And finally, if this hour has brought you at least one ray of light into your darkness, please give it a like. Treat this not as a gesture for a soulless algorithm, but as an act of service. Your like is not just a number. It is a beacon that you light for another traveler, lost in their own night. It is a quiet signal for another seeker who is right now scrolling through their feed in search of something real, a signal that says, here, there is water here, you will be understood here. Thank you for your courage, and remember, the only way out is through.